On behalf of Scott Dance USA, we're thrilled to welcome former three-time world champion Natalie Quick and her teachers, Sheila, Milne, and Delma Cargil. Welcome. Let's get started with you, Natalie. So what did a typical practice session look like for you?
I think it was, it was really important that I obviously practice in between lessons. I had really great lessons with Delma and Sheila, but I think what really was important in my practice was practicing regularly. It was probably about an hour a night, really it would be focusing on stamina and technique. I think looking back, it was instilled in me on how important it is in terms of repeating and perfecting movements. So I would practice quite a bit on my own and then hopefully fix some of the corrections before my next class. But looking back, I think the most important thing was the regularity of my practice. So I think that really helped me along the way to sort of consistently practice. So when it came to, bigger competitions, it was more just fine tuning.
Was there a pivotal moment where it kind of just clicked? I know that, obviously we competed against each other growing up, but I honestly remember a very young age hearing, oh my God, Natalie Quick is just like really improved. And was there that pivotal moment where it just kind of clicked for you?
I think, I danced against so many great dancers like yourself, and I think I always felt challenged. I think I remember winning my first Canadian championships at 10, and that felt pretty exciting. And I think I always felt like I had to work. I never felt like I could sort of rest because, you always had great competition. But I think maybe winning my first Worlds too really built my confidence and sort of I felt like things came together. I was 14 at the time, and I think I couldn't have imagined that it was possible. And I think when it happened, it was so exciting, and I think it sort of just helped me feel more confident in my dance and just helped me to grow further.
Absolutely. Delma, what did you see in Natalie?
Such a hard worker. I mean, I've taught a lot of kids over the years, but Natalie really stands out to me as the one kid that could get in front of that mirror and do it over and over and over and over and over, all by herself. And she also was one of the kids that would come back and things would be fixed. I mean, I know she's saying an hour, but I know there's times when it's getting close to a competition, she could be down there for 3 hours, her mom used to say, just until she got it right. So very, very motivated, which makes for a very easy dancing pupil. I remember one private where, do you remember, Natalie, when you came in and we did the first step of the chanteuse for the whole private? And I said, okay, go away, because I had this vision. And I said, okay, now go away now and practice on that, which I knew she would. She came back the next week and it wasn't quite as fine-tuned as I wanted. And then we went back and we worked on it for another private and everything. So, and it was cute because I also taught her sister, Sabrina. And so when they would come for a private, one would be sitting on the steps doing their homework, and the other one would have in their private, and then they'd switch over, and yeah. So it was good, but very, very hard worker, that's for sure.
Natalie, was there one thing that was really difficult for you to work on? Sometimes it's, for some dancers it's turnout or power. What was your one thing you had to focus on?
Yeah, it's funny. I think, there always felt like there was a few things to work on, but I think when I was younger, I think working on my hop was probably one of the things when I started to sort of progress. That's where I think I really had to work on that at a young age. So that, stands out for sure. I think I was always trying to work on my upper body as well and my control. I think I always remember too feeling that as a shorter dancer, I always wanted to lengthen my lines and because sometimes I was dancing with people often who might have been taller than me and longer legs. And so that's something that I always remember. I don't know, there might be other things that stand out for Delma and Sheila, but those come to mind as always ongoing things I had to work at.
Sheila, what was it that you worked on a lot with Natalie?
Well, I was very fortunate because I inherited Natalie from Delma. So she was already so well trained that it was like keeping it up. But Delma was great. But she was a very hard worker and a good competitor. I found that she didn't let herself get psyched out. And that's such an important thing. I'll give you one instance. We were at the Commonwealth, and her entry didn't get in very early, and she was in the first group up. So she sort of moaned about it, but very little. And I said to her, well, you just have to go up there and set the pace and show them. Well, I will, says she. And Natalie could give that little toss. Do you remember, Delma? Up she went, and she danced to Fling like nobody other. And then she said later, I think, some people are maybe videoing. I said, well, go up and show them what it should look like then. Well, I will, says Natalie, and up she went. It was great. And what a pleasure to work with a student who's got such work ethics and already well trained. It was a piece of cake for me then, because I just loved it.
I don't think so, Sheila, because you had to keep her there, didn't you?
She was easy to keep.
Yeah. Yeah, she's
Thank you, Delma. Thank you for your hard work, because she was absolute pleasure. And being in On Sound, she would come up sometimes for the weekend with Sabrina. And in a class lesson, and we also did a private when she was up. And they stayed for the weekend, but in a class lesson, if you went on to work on somebody else, Natalie was always over to the mirror working on her own, wasn't she? She never stopped working. So she was such a good role model.
Yes, she really was. And I was always really impressed because you just had your birthday just a few days ago. So she was always like when she went in 91, when she was 14, she had just turned 14 and she'd won.
Right.
Yeah. And it's the same, like she's always that one that that was like 2 years ahead of herself because she really had just finished being 13. I mean, you know what I mean? So
yeah, I do, because
his birthday can be a really unlucky thing for dancers.
And she was at 15 turning into the adult steps, but that was kind of easy for her, and there was no moaning and groaning about it. No, I'm just turning 6. Your birthday's the first part of August, isn't it?
Yeah.
August 2nd.
Yeah, you just got on with it and worked hard. We're leaving Natalie right out of this because Delma and I can tell you.
Funny. I remember that year though, and I felt so bad for you because you had to learn and do both sets of steps for the whole year, and then right before Scotland switch over. How difficult was that for you?
Yeah, it's funny. I remember that year very clearly, and I remember the steps were quite different, and so we finished with Canadians, and it actually felt kind of refreshing to have new steps to work on. I think it might have been leap and hiketing, I think, that year for the 16s and not for because I think that was the killer chantries I used to refer to, with the leap and hiketing.
That's right.
The lovely shuffles moving backwards. So that was always fun. So I remember doing a 6 and 2 choose with Delma and thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die here. And, but it was a new challenge in the midst of the year. And I sort of knew I had to work really hard. And I think we didn't actually do too much of the senior steps before, we sort of, I think I was in good shape. So that helped. But it was almost nice to have something new and to challenge me sort of before Worlds, and it probably helped me focus a little bit more. So that was the year Delma moved to Scotland, and so I was, it was very sad to lose her as a teacher, and but I was very fortunate to be able to transition with working with Sheila, who was also a wonderful teacher, and they were both so supportive. And I think I always felt really prepared because they pushed me and they challenged me. And, I also just having incredible support behind you made it easier, I think.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think we've talked about this with absolutely everybody, but that the importance of having a parent or a grandparent as well as your teacher, how important was that for you in your dancing career?
Yeah, I think I've heard people talk about the triangle, and I think it's so true, right? You have to have trust in your teacher. But I will also say I'll include in that triangle both my mother and my father. I think because they did so much for my sister and I. I have a brother who piped, so we were a busy family, and but I think I couldn't have done it, especially without my mom. She did so much to push me, and I always think I was normal. Like I was a hard worker, I think, but there was times where I didn't feel like practicing. I think that's important to admit. For many students, it's hard work, right? And so I think having my mom at a young age to support me and help me create that routine of practicing, but also I think they helped me find balance between focusing on school and dance, and they took me everywhere. And then, Delma was fortunately close by, but when I turned 16 and went to Sheila, it was a 2.5 hour drive. So I remember getting up on a Saturday morning, and we'd get up at 5:30 and I'd be there in the studio at 8:30 on a Saturday morning. And, you had to love it. And I did. And, but I also, I think dancers need to remember how lucky they are to have parents that push you and support you. And I think the parents deserve a lot of credit, and it's hard for them, right? And I think people have talked about that balance between the teacher and the parents have to support the teacher in order for it to work as well. So, but
all the same roles that they have, so the role as a dancer and teacher, and then, some parents like to overstep, but kind of nip them in the bud pretty quickly, eh, Sheila? With the triangle, we've all got to play our own roles, so we have to.
Yes.
Sometimes we got to kind of nail the parents down every now and again. But I must admit, I don't think I had any dancer that was really, really good that didn't have the triangle, because you need those parents so much.
You have to.
When you're there, Natalie, where you and Sabrina both won the Canadian Championships. In fact, I remember Sabrina beating my daughter.
In Whistler?
yeah, 90. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that was very cool.
It was.
Yeah, that was the first time she and I won the Canadians, and it was an amazing year too. It was beautiful at a beautiful location in Whistler, and I remember it was exciting to win. And then I remember when she won, I was so proud of her, and it was sort of, we didn't realize I was on stage, and I don't think I clued in that she had won, and so it was pretty special to celebrate all together.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
I think that was the first time two sisters had won the Canadians in the same year.
Wow. That's
That's right.
Yeah.
Record on that one.
Both Delma and Sheila, you have amazing dancers. How helpful is it to have them all in one class? Do you find that they kind of compete against each other in class and help push themselves and each other? Delma, let's start with you.
I would say definitely yes. And you know what? It kind of doesn't sound so nice when it comes out in words, but the whole time that you're trying to teach kids, you're always trying to motivate them. So I had a really nice solid class there, and I might see Natalie doing something really well, and I say, "Oh, Natalie, that's so good," and everybody's kind of, "What's she doing?" type thing. And it was competitive, but competitive in a good way.
How about you, Sheila?
Oh, absolutely. It's very helpful to have them in together, pacing each other and working and feeling that edge. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah,
I
and Natalie, obviously you had Sabrina at home as well when you were practicing, so I'm sure that that was also helpful for you both to help each other.
Yeah, it was always great to have my sister there. It's just, I think when I think back, it was probably always a comfort having her around. And we both, we practiced together at times. We fought at times too. I remember her helping me sometimes, and not always wanting to listen to her corrections. But I admired her dancing, and it was really nice to have somebody to practice with. And I would agree, like she was in a lot of my classes too, which was nice. And I do remember dancing in both Delma's and Sheila's classes that, there were a lot of great dancers. And I always found, I think it was tough because I loved my privates, but I think I almost loved group just as much, if not more, because I love seeing what others would do. And I think I've taken that into my own as a teacher now from both Delma and Sheila. You're always trying to motivate your students. And I think I appreciate now having somebody who's a hard worker in class who can be that role model, because I think that's tough if you don't have somebody to sort of set that pace. But yeah, I remember from a young age sort of looking at all the dancers in the room and thinking, I want to be like that. I want to push myself. And it was also fun, right? It was hard work, but it was really nice to dance with other people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, those that are really good in Highland dancing either have a bit of perfectionist in them or definitely a competitive side. So I definitely think it's always helpful to be able to be in a class where, you have others to push yourselves and kind of get to that. So absolutely.
Yeah, I remember my husband he's a former professional ballet dancer, and I remember the first time I met him long after I stopped competing, so he never saw me compete but I remember taking him to his first competition, and I was really excited because I took him to the Canadian Championships in Antigonish, and I was so excited. I had done ballet for years, and I was excited to show him and for him to see some of the best dancers out there, right? And I thought, wait till he sees their elevation, their points, their turnout, their poise. And I think we'd sort of watched maybe the flings of the Canadians, and he turned to me and said, when are they going to do a different step? and so it was then, it's funny, right? Because I thought, I hadn't really given a lot of thought before, but I guess as Highland dancers, we do, we're perfectionistic, so we're comfortable doing the same thing, perfecting it over. I think it draws a certain personality type to adhere to that. But then he grew to appreciate the other dances. But
Yeah, absolutely. How much did you do? How much did the ballet help your Highland?
I'm a huge proponent of ballet. My sister and I both took ballet from a young age, and we would limit it to about one class per week, but we took it pretty consistently. We had a awesome hardcore Chiquetti teacher who was very strict and tough, and she was very, I think because we were well suited, I think, to ballet as well, she was keen for us to do more ballet, but we sort of kept to one class per week, and that was my cross training. I think it really helped my technique, my alignment, my turnout. I think it's one of the best forms of cross training you can do in Highland, and I'm constantly encouraging my students to engage in it. I think I loved it as well, but I always preferred Highland. But I think it really helped round me as a more well-rounded dancer.
Absolutely. And Mrs. Milne, you're very well known for having a lot of ballet through your studio as well. Is that something that you feel is also very supportive for Highland dancing?
Absolutely. Long before it was considered a good idea in Highland circles, because I can remember when it was a no-no thought to be involved with ballet. But I think it's amazing. It works on the whole body, and I just think it's a wonderful challenge for them. My students that took both ballet and Highland were better in both than those who just took ballet or just took Highland. So I guess it speaks to that. Yeah.
Definitely does. Definitely does. Let's talk about Cowell, Natalie. What was it like your first year going over, and then how it progressed through the years as you?
Yeah, I remember I was 12 when I first went, and our whole family went. So it was for a month. It was like a big vacation plus Cowell included in that. And it was a bit, it was very different. I remember I loved, we were dancing outside at lots of most of the events, and I found that interesting and challenging. I remember when I was 12, I think I won Commonwealth that year, and then for Cowell, I think I came sixth. And so I remember at that time they only took 2 dancers, and so I remember sitting at the top of the grandstand. And I remember the weather was kind of interesting that day. It was rather cold and very rainy. And I remember sitting at the top watching the dancers thinking, oh my gosh, that looks really challenging, but also wishing that I was in there. So I think that kind of set my motivation. And then I didn't go. My sister went when I was 13. I stayed back. It was expensive to go every year. And so then the next year that I went was when I was 14. I really loved it. I think it was, I loved Scotland. I thought it was a beautiful place to visit as well. And but I still remember the feeling of stepping on stage at Cowell. And I think, it's funny, you remember, I think, the wins, but I still always remember the feeling of, stepping on stage, but also after doing a great sword and coming off, and that feeling of accomplishment. So, but yeah, I think sort of going at 12 sort of helped prepare me. And then I felt a little more prepared when I went when I was 14 and every year after.
Delma, at what point did you think Natalie has a shot at winning Worlds?
It's something that I don't think we talk too much about. We talked more about Ontarians and being a rep, and more about Canadians. And then we went over to Scotland. We didn't have high expectations. That's how I remember it anyway. Do you think I'm right, Natalie?
Yeah, it's funny. I was thinking about that. I do remember, I think it was just before when I went over when I was 14, that I think, we hadn't really talked about it, right? We just sort of focused on working, improving and performing well. And I do remember once in the studio, I think you maybe said to me that there could be a chance that I could win it. And I distinctly remember that. And it's funny, but it hadn't occurred to me at all. And I remember that instilling in me. I just wasn't thinking that was even possible, right? So I think we didn't overly focus on it, but I remember that gave me a sense of hope and a bit of shock and the belief that I could do it. So I think it's true. When we went, I really felt supported by both Delma and Sheila, because I just really went, when I competed, I focused on, I wanted to win, but I also really just focused on dancing my best, I think. And I think that helped me, and it wasn't the end of the world if I lost. And I think I just went there to do my best. And I don't know, I think that helped my nerves a lot.
I agree. I think that it's just important to always focus on your performance and what you have control over, because you don't have control over the results, obviously. So I think that's a really good
control over how the other dancers are going to dance, so lots of times we knew who our Canadian competitors were, but you don't know how anybody's dancing in Scotland. I think it's a much smaller world now, but at the time that Natalie was going over, we didn't have as, and I think a lot of Scottish weren't going over to Canada either. There was more Canadians kind of going over to Scotland, but so we didn't really know what our competitors were looking like. And so we didn't say, watch this one or whatever. I do remember knowing that we got judged closer than we do in Canada. So, I kind of worked on just a bit more turnout and everything, just a little bit more technique, I think, but that was about it.
from what I remember, the music was always much faster in Scotland versus what we danced in Ontario, especially. We always, played very slow music. So I always remember that was the one thing that I had to focus on before going to Scotland. How did you deal with those differences and the environment, being outside in the rain and things like that?
Yeah. I found it similar. I remember when Fling I did at Cowell, and I felt like I kind of described it like doing a 100-meter sprint. I think in comparison, because we did. I think, Nat, you're right. Like, we danced so slow at home often, and often in the heat. And I think that's one thing I had to work hard at fast music, because my tendency was to prefer slower tempos. So I remember working on that. I think I always trained both, but especially before Scotland, we sort of focused on feeling prepared. So that was kind of exciting. But I remember realizing, I think too, that if you're well trained, you should be able to dance to any speed, and the positions are there as well. But it was definitely a new challenge, I think. I think one of the ways that I always, especially in Scotland, I remember, but elsewhere too, before competitions, I would always tend to chat in line, and I remember chatting. Yep. And I remember my mom, I think one time, she probably said this to both Delma and Sheila, but she would get worried because she'd be like, she should be focusing. I think it was maybe Delma who said to her, that's over her nerves. And I just, it was great, because I met all kinds of dancers from Scotland, and I think that I'm a chatty person anyway, so I think I enjoyed meeting new people, and but it also took my mind off sort of not paying attention too much about watching what everyone else is doing, but I kind of calm myself in that way, I think.
Yeah, you like the social part of it as well. That's good. Yeah. And everybody deals with things differently. You can't say to a kid in the lineup, don't you chat. You sit there and you concentrate. And the thing is, there is some kids that you might end up saying that because they go up on the stage and they make a mess of it. But you didn't. So you could chat, and then away you'd go up on the stage, and you just danced beautifully.
I remember, when you're up in the stands at Cowell watching this chat, and there's nothing you can do. But then they could just switch it. Up Natalie went. I remember seeing Natalie when she was 14 and thinking, oh, this girl's got to win it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was great.
Can't be chatting too much now because the kids are all intense, so you have no idea what you're doing in there.
Yeah. I think it's a bit of it's funny, right? Because Natalie will probably remember we danced in many interesting conditions. I remember the sawdust and warming up in our capes, and I always laugh because I say to my students, you don't know how lucky you have it now with the tents.
I know.
But I do think, like, Natalie and I have danced together for years and been good friends. And I think, you developed, I think that was one part of it. When you look back, you really remember the friendships and the people you met. And I really enjoyed being able to be friends with people I danced with and competed with as well. I think it's a shame if kids, lose out on that, because I know it's, you have to focus in that, but I always hope for dancers that they learn to develop those relationships and friendships, because, at the end of it all, that's often what stands out the most, I think.
I 100% agree. I mean, we have friends all over the world, and like we were discussing, I mean, you don't have control over the results, but we were always just so close, and we supported each other and, wished each other the best, and whatever happened, and we're happy for each other. So I 100% agree. I think that is just important to have that good sportsmanship and those friendships.
And I think you guys respected each other's dancing. And I think when I think back, that happened a lot for people who were really, they never kind of said, I can't imagine why she would win or he would win. It was never anything like that. It was always, I really like the way she does that. And I was always like, have a look at what you like about the dancing and be positive, about it. I've got a picture in the hall, and it's Natalie of you winning in 91, but it's also Natalie and Jackie winning in 93. So that's on my, we call it the Hall of Fame. So it's, yeah. So you're on there too, Natalie.
Actually, I think my husband was at your house talking to David, and he noticed the picture and said, "You're in Delma's house. What are you doing in Delma's house?" Oh, that was kind of funny.
Yeah, I think actually we were talking about, I think I was hearing somebody talk about Queen's Hall, and I remember we moved in there, I think, a couple of years, and I remember, I don't remember which year it was, but I remember somehow it felt like a bit of chaos because trying to get there quickly. We didn't have a car over with us, and so I think I got on a bus somehow with, I don't know who, maybe it was a pipe band or what, to get there, or people were organizing something. And my mom and my sister, maybe we went on the bus, and my mom didn't get on, and she realized she had my garters. And so, like, I think she literally ran with the garters and made and yeah, those are the kind of things that you remember. It's funny, it's the challenges stronger. And I think, yeah, I agree that I had so many great dancers like Natalie and so many others to dance against year after year, and you push each other, right? Because you think, wow, yeah, they danced really well, and if I want to do better, I've got to work harder. So, and you respect each other and appreciate that, you're dancing against a lot of great dancers, and sometimes not everyone can win, and you have to respect each other and keep pushing harder. I think it was always great, and you and I were always really competing together for many years, and we were always good friends. And so I try and instill that in my students. I think it's the number one thing, right? When you compete at something when you're young, I think it's a good lesson to learn to be a good sport, and to recognize that you will lose sometimes, and it's really great when you lose gracefully. And it's great to win as well, of course, but I think people remember that about you, and it teaches kids, I think, hard work and good lessons.
Absolutely. What is it like now for you, being a teacher of an amazing dancer who's traveling over to Cal now?
It's really special. It's I think it's so different as the teacher. I think, it's exciting. Sometimes it's, you feel like, oh, if I could just do it myself, it would feel a lot easier and different. But I've been fortunate to work with, a few dancers who've been really hardworking. I think one of my dancers who did really well last year, it was very exciting because I think I've really enjoyed the process of working with them to progress and to see where they can go. I think the hardest thing too is sometimes on the day of the competition, I appreciate Delma and Sheila more now, I think, because I think, you can get nervous and you think you don't want to make them more nervous. So I remember at competitions, I was almost afraid to go to Delma and Sheila because I didn't want to know if it was bad or I was worried. And I just kind of wanted to focus on moving forward. So I try my best to support them, but yeah, it's changed a lot, and I think for the better. But it's so satisfying to see them do well and see them succeed, and just to be a part of that process.
I think that we all have a newfound appreciation for our teachers once we're there ourselves and realize, how much hard work it is.
Steps, I think, and you just kind of keep getting to know each dancer for themselves and just kind of supporting them all the way through, I think. You're not always going to have champions, you're not always going to, but if you can try and make each dancer feel special and feel that they are dancing at their best that they can dance, it was something we always kind of strive for.
True, and I think sometimes it's wonderful to have a champion dancer, but it can be pretty gratifying to have a dancer that comes with crooked little legs or something, and you see them improve. That's pretty gratifying too.
had the opportunity to become a judge as well has been a real source of joy as well. I think it's really interesting being on the other side of the table, and I think it taught me a lot, and it's taught me a lot as a teacher as well. And I think but it's, it's just a way to kind of continue the joy. I think we all feel how hard it was to stop competing and stop dancing, and it's just a nice way to keep going with something that you love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it's definitely not easy to get your judges. So well done on that.
It was such a privilege to have Natalie and to see how hard she worked and the work she had done with Delma. That was quite a privilege for me, and I thoroughly enjoyed working with her. Thank you, Delma.
You're welcome. What was your most memorable moment in Highland dancing?
It's nice because I think there's a few. I think I'll never forget when the first Worlds that I won, when I remember sitting in the stands and, you never know what's going to happen, right? So, and they would do that wonderful thing where they would announce, you had no results on the Saturday, but they would announce 6 to first place. And I remember thinking when they announced the first runner-up, wow, I might actually win this thing, or I might not get anything. And that's an interesting moment when you're sitting there in a suspenseful moment. And then when they called your number, it's just kind of a moment of shock and disbelief and excitement all in one, I think. And I remember dancing the World Championship Fling on stage, and that's something I think it goes so quickly, right? But I think it's, you reflect back on all of the hours that you've put in, and it's sort of this such a high at the end point where you get to perform and just enjoy it, right? So I think that was one of my favorites that I'll never forget. I think winning with my sister that year, Canadians, was also a really special moment for me and my family too. When I sort of stopped competing, Natalie, you'll remember I did also get to do some performing as I wrapped up my competitive career, and a bunch of us with Anne Milne's Sheila's daughter group got together as a bunch of world champions and got to do some performances. And I think
of Wrath. Was it
Flame of Wrath?
Yes. And our group was Celtic Accent, I think. And, it was Nat, me, Anne Milne, Dawn Brennan, Jackie Smith, Carly Layton, Colleen Rintamaki. I think I got everyone in there. Did I miss
8 of us, yeah.
Yeah, and it was the first opportunity that I got to do sort of a team performance, and I think that's one of the things in Highland. You compete so much individually, and then when I got to perform with you and everyone, the choreography was great and did a brilliant job. The choreography was not easy. I remember feeling terrified that I was going to screw up, and it was a different feeling because it was not like when you were competing on your own. If you messed up, it was just mainly you were impacting. But it was such we all got along, and I think it was really fun to perform as a team at that point. So that was kind of an exciting opportunity to sort of have after my competitive career, and we also had a lot of fun too. So yeah.
It was an easier transition for me anyways, like retiring from competing, but I still had that ability to do shows and perform. I think that it was just easier for me to retire from competing because I had that. I think around the same time, yeah.
Yeah, it kind of give you a chance. We could still dance pretty good, but it was a little bit easier and something different too.
I'd love to also bring up the 93 Worlds, where all 3 Ontario, so I won the juvenile, you won junior, and Jackie Smith won the adults, which was, I don't know if it was the first time ever, 3 Ontario. And 2 of them, obviously, both you and Jackie went to Delma as well. So I think that was a very special one.
Yeah, I think, winning with, yeah. I think winning with two people that I respected so much, and both being from home, and I don't think either of us probably put it together until they announced, and it was just, I remember us walking, I think, with our Canadian flags around the track, and it was so lovely to win with both two people who were amazing dancers, and I respected you both so much. It was
Wasn't that the time, though, that you used to go down the street?
Yes,
Yeah.
we did. We did the whole,
Great fun.
and there was
Yeah.
people at the lamp posts and hanging out windows.
I know they kind of spoiled when they took all the way to pubs and you can't drink outside.
Yeah. Yeah, that was fun though, going down the street, trying to get your way down to a restaurant or something to eat.
Natalie, what was was there any funny moments or kind of mishaps that happened?
I'm sure there was, there felt like there was quite a few. Like, I don't know if Delma and Sheila remember anything besides.
One thing comes to mind, it wasn't actually anything to do with your dancing, but it had to do with, like, remember that time that your dog chased your skunk? Or the skunk sprayed all over and then went running through their house, and all their Highland outfits were there.
Oh, God.
Yeah, that is actually a really true story. So I had a German Shepherd growing up, and she was like the fourth child of the family. She got let back into the house without us realizing that she'd gotten sprayed in the backyard. And she was in so fast before we could realize, and the smell was so bad that it got in under the floorboards. So we actually got our kitchen floor repaired after that happened. The insurers, I think, were asking if the skunks had like run in the cupboards or something. So yeah,
Costumes or new outfits or not, but I think you did.
Is there anything else that you would like to add?
Maybe I will just add that I think I would like to say an enormous thank you to both Delma and Sheila, who've been amazing teachers to me, and such support over the years, and helped me love Highland even more. And I think, I just try and do what they did for me to my students, and I'm very grateful. So I was very lucky to have such wonderful teachers. And a huge thank you to you, Natalie, for doing this with us and for the opportunity.
Well, thank you all for participating. It's really helpful. And I think that you're going to be an inspiration to a lot of people out there, especially during COVID when, there's no championships or anything going on this year. So, that the goal of this is to provide some inspiration to the dancers and teachers out there. And I think you all did that very well. So thank you so much.